Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of feel bad for Dillon Gabriel because of all the quarterbacks that could start for the Cleveland Browns at some point. It feels like Dillon Gabriel at this point in June is the one that Browns fans want to see the least. Like, there would be a lot of excitement for Shedeur Sanders' first start. I think that's obvious. There's going to be some excitement if Joe Flacco comes back and starts a game, given what he did in 2023 in the Browns uniform. Kenny Pickett wouldn't excite people, but I think a lot of folks would understand. He's a former starter. He's won games. He's a former first-round pick. Like, I don't think people would be excited about Kenny. I don't think anybody wants to see Kenny. But I don't think anybody would be confused if Kenny was out there. Dillon Gabriel is the one option that would simultaneously piss everybody off and confuse everybody, because nobody thinks that that's the rookie that should be playing earlier than later, right? Or that should win this quarterback competition. He's the guy who looks the least the part of a franchise quarterback. He's significantly smaller than obviously Joe Flacco, but even guys who are 6'1", like Kenny Pickett, I think Shedeur's on the taller side of 6'1", and then you have Dillon Gabriel standing there at 5'11", 1/8 inch, basically 5'11" flat, and he just doesn't look the part. He has a lot of experience playing college football, but that experience and the useful of it in the pros is debated because of the systems he's played under, right? Josh Heupel, not a ton of turnover from people who run that system successfully in college to NFL quarterbacks. Lincoln Riley has more success with that. And so does Dan Lanning, but both of those offenses in college, when you look at them from an NFL perspective, are also seen as gimmicks, right? Outside the building, it seems like there is nobody championing Dillon Gabriel for any reason. Like, I could find people who want Kenny Pickett to start because they want to give Shedeur time. I can find people who want Shedeur to start because they're huge Shedeur Sanders fans. I can find people who want Joe Flacco to start because they want to relive 2023. But Dillon Gabriel, finding people excited about Dillon Gabriel, it's kind of tough, and that's really unfortunate, right? Like, he has been kind of slotted into this situation because he didn't ask the Browns to draft Shedeur, and I think Shedeur being here really makes these things worse for Dillon Gabriel, because it was already going to be a tough sell to get people excited about Dillon Gabriel in Cleveland when we have cold weather and he's not the biggest guy in the world. It's even more of a tough sell for Dillon Gabriel now that Shedeur is standing over him, right? You got Joe Flacco there. It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot. Here's what I will say for the Dillon Gabriel selection. I think this selection opens up a very interesting conversation about Kevin Stefanski. Now, again, we're speculating. We don't know if this is who Kevin wanted at quarterback. This could have been an Andrew Berry thing. This could have been a Bill Musgrave thing. This could have been a Tommy Rees thing, right? All of those things are possible in the third round. It's not a guarantee that Kevin was pounding the table for Dillon and then got Dillon. That's what the wide perception is, but perception can be reality. But in this term, this situation is really not representative. A lot of people just been guessing that this is Kevin's guy based on reading body language or whatever, the selection of the pick too. But I don't know if this is Kevin's guy. But if we do live in a world where Dillon Gabriel is 100% the guy that Kevin wanted, right, in this draft, there are some other things there that track with Kevin, right? And the things that I'm seeing that tracks kind of concerns me when it comes to trusting Kevin's eye for a quarterback, and maybe his eye is something that we should rely on less, despite him being a good head coach. Because what Kevin and what the Browns, as far as like the young quarterbacks they've brought in two, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Dillon Gabriel, right? Everybody else was just fringe roster guys. They really do seem to value college starting experience in the Power Five. That was a big selling point that they made with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and nobody has played more Power Five games in this draft class, I think, than Dillon Gabriel, right? So that tracks with what the Browns really like in somebody. I think they like executors, right? And that's where I start to be concerned about, well, not concerned, but I start to see the limitations of Kevin's eye for quarterbacks if we are to believe that Dillon Gabriel is somebody that he wanted. And this is what makes me concerned about it. I think Kevin Stefanski's dream quarterback is closer to Brock Purdy than it is Joe Burrow. And that concerns me, right? Because I feel like one of the things Kevin thrives with quarterbacks are quarterbacks that are going to allow him to have a bit more control, right? It's kind of a Sean McVay situation here with Kevin. Now, I don't think he's as controlling as Sean McVay, but I do think that there is an element of control that Kevin wants from the quarterback position in order to get it to where he wants to get it to, that he likes, right? You look at the quarterbacks that he has liked a lot. These are quarterbacks who are going to pretty much do what he says for the most part. You look at the quarterbacks who have had the best years under Kevin Stefanski. They're quarterbacks who are doing what he says, right? You look at the quarterbacks who have struggled with Kevin or Kevin has not liked. They're usually quarterbacks who try to go to their own beat of their own drum. Now, I'm not saying that how Kevin goes about it is wrong. We just brought up Sean McVay. He is way more controlling than Kevin from everything that we could tell. And he's won a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford, a franchise quarterback, right? So this can obviously work, right? And not to say that just being super laissez-faire about the quarterback position works either, right? Like that's how you get a lot of guys to struggle. We saw that with Ken Dorsey, who was a bit more hands-off with Deshaun this last year, and it ended in disastrous results. So there's pros and cons to both approaches. I think sometimes Kevin can be a bit uncompromising on his approach, and that leads to strange stuff happening, right? Whatever happened with Baker in 2021, even when you account for the shoulder injury, Baker's floor shouldn't have been as bad as it was in 2021, in my opinion, seeing what he's been able to do with Tampa Bay. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, look, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a very good quarterback, but man, he really shouldn't have been the 47th ranked quarterback in the NFL, right? Like that's a bit much there. And that kind of stuff does not give me great confidence, and I hope that they've looked at those two cases internally and said to themselves, we're going to try something different this year. That's why they have a quarterbacks coach, hopefully. Tommy Rees is in there as an offensive coordinator, a former quarterback, Tommy Rees. So maybe this is a way to get the benefits of Kevin Stefanski, because I do think Kevin offers you offensively a ton of benefits. I think he is a great architect. He is really good at communicating and installing the offense, and really explaining it thoroughly to people so they get the concepts that they're trying to grasp there. And he's a pretty good play caller. I know people give Kevin his flack for all the time about play caller, but I think he's a significantly better play caller than a lot of coaches around the league. I mean, you go ask a fan about their coach, they all think their coach is terrible play caller, except for maybe Kyle Shanahan, like San Francisco fans. But even San Francisco fans got their beef with Kyle's play calling, right? Like you just watch a guy call plays enough, you're gonna have beef with it. But I think he's a pretty good play caller, a great architect, and a great executor when it comes to installing that offense, right? And he's been able to demonstrate that with a number of guys. What I do think Kevin struggles with is, one, I don't think he has the best eye for quarterback play. he tends to gravitate to these really small guys who have played a lot of football and execute what their coach wants them to a lot. But I don't know if that's the best thing for trying to find people who translate to the NFL. You look at the players who are able to translate. There's a lot of quarterbacks who run offense as well, put up good numbers in college, play a lot of college games, get to the NFL, and maybe they're back up. The guys who usually make it in the NFL tend to have a elite trait, right? They play the game a little bit differently. And I worry if he's too uncompromising on how he sees the game and what he wants, that it's always going to be difficult for a young quarterback to grow in such a tightly contained environment. And why I think it's important that he has guys in between him to be able to get the most out of not just Kevin, but the most out the quarterback position. Dillon is an example of this, right? He's another selection that I think is comfortably undersized. With DTR, it was weight that was the concern with him. With Dillon Gabriel, it's height that's the concern with him. Super productive quarterbacks, both of them. I'm worried that Dillon is going to be a little bit more conservative than he needs to be, and that was the death of DTR. But to Dillon's credit, significantly better down the field thrower in college football than Dorian Thompson-Robinson ever was, right? Like, and that really was the downfall of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Once the league figured out that he can't throw the ball past 20 yards with any kind of consistency or accuracy, it was over with. They just sat on him. He had to play super conservatively, and that just crushed any effectiveness that he has. Dillon doesn't have to be the same way. He's more accurate and has more capable arm talent down the field than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. The real question with Dillon is, how much is your height going to affect you at the next level? Like, how good are you going to be at finding passing lanes, and are you a slippery athlete? Don't need you to be Lamar Jackson, but you need to be really hard to tackle if you're going to play quarterback at 5'11" in the NFL, right? Like, that's just part of it. Not a single 5'11" quarterback in NFL history that's done anything has not been a slippery athlete. Like, it's not there, right? Like, you look at the guys who make the Pro Bowl at that height, they're pretty slippery guys. So you're going to have to be slippery at that size in the NFL. You're going to have to be able to break out the pocket and find lanes. You're going to have to be really good at improvising. And look, Dillon has showed that he can improvise on tape and that he can get the ball downfield on tape, especially at Oklahoma. The question with him is just like, okay, we know you're going to be physically limited in the NFL, but what does that look like? Are you going to be more willing to attack downfield, or are you going to be scared to attack downfield because of those limitations? That's going to be what determines this. For Dillon, if he goes into camp, for his best case scenario, if he goes into camp and he is willing to attack downfield, he is willing to throw into tight windows, and he can throw into those tight windows with accuracy. If he does a really good job of finding his passing lanes with his experience, I think the Browns would be a lot more comfortable starting him early than they would with Shedeur, simply because Dillon has played a lot more college FBS games than Shedeur. 5 seasons in the FBS for Dillon Gabriel versus 2 seasons in the FBS for Shedeur Sanders. And to Dillon's credit, the last 2 well, no, not the last 2. Well, kind of the last 2. Yeah, he was in the SEC his second to last year of college, and he was in the Big Ten the last year, and you can argue that those were the 2 best conferences in all of college football those years. Somebody correct me if that last year he was at Oklahoma was in the SEC. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think it was the case, because I think Oklahoma's been in SEC 2 seasons, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. I might be wrong on that. But still, Dillon has a lot more experience. I think the coaching staff, Kevin included, I think Kevin mainly, puts too much stock into that, but I think that's going to allow them to look at Dillon and say he can start if he looks good. Now, what has to happen for Dillon to start? Because I don't think he's just going to win the job outright, even if he plays really well. Again, like we talked about in Shedeur, if he's undeniable, right? Like, you're watching him in camp, you're like, oh my God, he tore up the Eagles. Okay. Then you're going to roll with him, right? If you think he's one of the 5th, if you think he's Tua or better, Okay, cool. You're going to start him week 1. But anything other than that, it's going to be about if he can beat Shedeur Sanders in this competition to determine who the Browns are going to take seriously going forward, right? And that's Dillon's job, is to be the guy that they can take seriously. It's going to really be about consistency with Dillon Gabriel. I don't think he's going to be able to hit the same heights as Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur is going to put some throws on camera during training camp. They're going to be incredible. Some throws that maybe Dillon's not capable of. Not saying Dillon's not going to be able to drop a dime or two. He's already done it so far in minicamp. But, you know, Shedeur's probably going to be able to give you better high moments than Dillon will. But Dillon's thing has to be consistency in execution, right? Because that's what Kevin loves, is consistency in execution. Are you processing quickly? Are you getting the ball out fast? Are you not taking a ton of sacks? Are you making smart decisions? Are you taking care of the football? And are you consistent in your execution? If Dillon is doing that better than Shedeur, they will choose Dillon over Shedeur, right? I know nobody wants to hear it, but that's the truth. Because that's what they value at the quarterback position. We have to see if that's a right plan, because it might work out for them, right? But that's what they value at the quarterback position. They want that consistency there. And I think that's where Dillon can use, or like the special skill that Dillon has, because you look at Dillon's college football career, the one thing you cannot call that man is inconsistent. Like, look at his college football career. It is insanely from day one at UCF when he's throwing to Gabe Davis, by the way. Like, that's how long Josh Heupel was at UCF and Gabe Davis was catching passes Dillon Gabriel's freshman year. And, you know, he was able to make plays. That year was a really good quarterback. This next year, the year after that, like 5 years of just solid quarterback play from Dillon Gabriel in college, operating different offenses, playing with new teammates, all of this stuff. He has been insanely consistent. Shedeur, he's not been inconsistent in college, but has not had the 5-year track record of just straight up consistency, despite having inconsistent settings around him like Dillon has had. So that's what Dillon brings to the table. And if he can demonstrate that, hey, look, maybe Shedeur's capable of some more wow moments than me, but play to play, day to day, week to week, I'm the more consistent guy. I'm the guy you can trust not to make a horrific decision. I'm the guy that's going to be really good at the line of scrimmage, who's going to get you into the right protection, who's going to get you into the right run fits, who's going to check the play when it needs to be checked, and you're not going to have to go around my back to make sure I'm doing it correctly. If I can offer that consistency, which he has offered at every stop that he's had at college football, then he's going to become a very appealing option to the Cleveland Browns, as long as he's executing the offense sufficiently on the field, which means being able to attack downfield, get the backside dig to Jerry Jeudy, right? Have every option available to him on these pass plays and execute play action to a high level while also being slippery. It's not going to be easy, but there is certainly a path for Dillon Gabriel to end camp and be the guy that the Browns are the most excited about, despite all the buzz around Shedeur Sanders. This is not a cakewalk. If you are a Shedeur fan angrily watching this video because you're mad that I'm even entertaining the idea that Dillon can win this quarterback competition, because it's more than possible that Dillon can win this quarterback competition. I would say I think the Browns expect that Dillon wins that quarterback competition for no other reason than they drafted him earlier than they drafted Shedeur Sanders. So this thought process from some people that it's going to be cakewalk to get through Dillon Gabriel, it's not going to be a cakewalk to get through Dillon Gabriel. This is a guy who's put together 5 years of really good college football tape, high-level college football tape, and against high-level teams and high-level conferences year in and year out. This is not somebody who I would just think is super easy to beat. Dillon might be a 10-year backup. You got to be really good to be a 10-year backup, right? And it wouldn't be that horrific of a scenario for the Browns if they drafted a 10-year backup in the 3rd round, or if Shador became a 10-year backup, right? I know nobody wants to hear that because everybody's in a different place with them, but there's a world where, like, one of these guys, maybe they're not good enough to start, but they're Teddy Bridgewater, right? And you get that for 10 years, and you're fine with that as long as you got an actual starting quarterback within the next couple of years. So some of this stuff is similar to how Shador can see the field. I do think the bar is a little bit lower than it is with Shador because I think they're more willing to play him early than they are Shador Sanders, because that college experience, I think, does carry weight with the Cleveland Browns organization if we're just looking at what they've done in the past. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm just saying that's kind of seems like what it is. They trust that college experience more than I would. I think if Flacco got hurt and it was between him and Kenny Pickett, and he pulls even with Kenny Pickett, he gets the job, right? That's kind of the scenario that would have to happen. Flacco would have to get hurt or completely fall off a cliff. In my perfect scenario for the Browns, you play Joe Flacco the first 6 weeks of the season. Maybe you dilly-dally in with a couple of games of Dillon Gabriel in the first 6 weeks, or you give Dillon Gabriel weeks 7 and 8, and then you give Shador the rest of the season. That's how I would want the quarterback situation handled. But I do think Dillon is going to play before Shador plays. I think we got to prepare ourselves for that. I think some people are going to be furious during the year when it happens, but it's absolutely going to happen. Dillon is going to play before Shador plays, right? The question is, when Dillon plays, how long of a leash does the coaching staff get him? And I think that's what this training camp is going to determine, right? If Dillon goes out there and he looks pretty mediocre during training camp, again, in these joint practices and in the preseason, then yeah, they'll throw him out there before they put out Shador because they drafted him earlier. But that leash might be really quick where they're like, all right, we've seen enough. We don't need to see more. 2 weeks is enough. Let's put in Shador. Or if they get a lot out of Dillon and they think Dillon looks pretty impressive, they might give him a lot more time before they go to Shador in the natural order of the quarterback room. So what happens in camp, it might not dictate with these two what goes down week 1, but it definitely will have a factor in what goes down at the bye week. So, that's where this quarterback competition is going to have its largest effect. We'll see what Dillon does. There's not a lot of people, including myself. I'll be fair on this. I'm not going to act like I've been Dillon Gabriel fan. I don't think Dillon going to do it, but nobody's really been giving this guy a shot, including myself. Let's see if Dillon can shock the world. But if you're wondering how Dillon can get the starting quarterback job in Cleveland eventually, how he can win this competition and what winning this competition would look like for Dillon Gabriel, I think it looks a lot like what we discussed in this video. You let me know in the comment section down below, what does Dillon Gabriel winning this competition look like to you? Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.